This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Agan Erev Shabbos Rabbi, as we prepare for Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, Parshas HaChodesh, Chodesh Nisan. The Torah tells us in last week's Parsha, Parsha Shmini, Vayehi Bayoim HaShmini, it was on the 8th day. Rashi says, Shmini L'Miluim. What day was the 8th day of the Miluim? Who Rosh Chodesh Nisan. That was Rosh Chodesh Nisan, Shehukam HaMishkan, that the Mishkan was erected. Boy B'yoim, on that day. V'notal Eser Atarois, and that day took 10 crowns, Hashnuyos B'Seder Olam, that are taught in Seder Olam. So the first day of Nisan, is a very special day. It's a day that is honored with 10 crowns. What are the 10 crowns? So the Gemara in Shabbos on Pei Zayin Amud Beis tells us, what are the 10 crowns of Rosh Chodesh Nisan? Vayi b'chodesh harishon b'shana hashenis be'echad lachodesh hukam ha'mishkan Tana oisa yom natal eser hataris. That day took 10 crowns. Number 1, Rishon Lamase Bereshis. That was the day that the world was created. It was the first day of creation. Now what does that mean, it was the first day of creation? What does that mean, it was the first day of creation? So Pashup Pshat is, it was a Sunday. That's what it means. That day that the Mishkan was erected, it was a Sunday. It was the first day of Ma'aseh Bereshis. You could also say another simple Pshat. It was literally the first day the world was created. As we know, the world was created on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So you say, no, it wasn't. I thought it was created in Rosh Hashanah. Zikaron L'Yom Rishon. The truth is, it's a machlokes Tanaim. It's a machlokes Reb Lezer or Reb Yoshua. Reb Lezer holds the world was created in Tishrei. The world was created in Tishrei. And Reb Yeshua says the world was created in Nisan. And it happens to be, who do we paskin like? Wrong. We paskin like Reb Yeshua, that the world was created in Nisan. So you say, well, how do you argue about when the world was created? The truth is that Arizal says, but Tosfos brings Rabbeinu Tam, that it was Allah b'machshava to create it in Tishrei, but he actually created it in Nisan. Okay, so it was a Sunday. It was the first day of creation. Rishon l'Nasiim. It was the first of the Nasiim. Which Nasi brought his carbon on Yom Rishon? Nachshon ben Aminadav l'matei Yehuda. Number 3. Rishon l'Kahuna was the first day that the Kohanim started to do the Avodah. Until then, who did the Avodah? The Bechayrim. Good, the Bechayrim. Okay? Rishon l'Kahuna. Number 4, Rishon la'Avodah was the first day that the Avodah began. What does that mean, the Avodah began? They started bringing the Karban Tamid. Rishon li'Ridas ha'esh. It was the first day, number 5, that the fire came down from heaven. Number 6, Rishon la'Achilas Kachim. It was the first day that the sacrificial foods, the Kachim, had to be eaten in a specific place. Until then, they could be eaten anywhere. Rishon Lishkan Shechina was the first day that the Shechina resided. Rishon Levarchas Yisrael. There was the first day that the Kohanim did Berachas Kohanim. Number 9, Rishon Le'Isser HaBamais. It was the first day that Bamais, private offerings, became Asar. All house minyanim ceased, all Bamais ceased on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. And Rishon L'Chadashim. And it was also the first of the months of the year, and that is Nisan begins the beginning of the year. Okay, it's the first month of the year. Now, if you look in the Seder Olam, the Seder Olam seems to bring in a number of another Rishon. It says in Seder Olam, "Vayhi b'yom hashmini, achar zayin yimei miluim ve'echad b'Shabbos haya, v'Rosh Chodesh Nisan haya, u'bay b'yom amdu Aaron uvanav v'rachatzu es yideim v'sragleim en akiyar v'avdos kol ha'avodos." The Hasidur Ma'aseder, they did everything in order. Ubay b'yom hischilu hanasiyim lahakriv, and shenemar hamakriv b'yom harishon, rishon l'maaseh bereshis, rishon l'nasiyim. So that's so far the same as the Gemara. Rishon l'shkoin shchina b'Yisrael, shenemar shchandu somebody. So rishon l'isser bama, rishon l'kahuna, rishon l'bracha, rishon l'avoda, rishon l'chadashim. Another one is Rishon L'Shchitas Safain. They started shechting on the north of the Mizbeach. Rishon L'Achilas Kodshim, Rishon L'Vidas Ha'esh. Boy B'yayim Hikrivu Yisrael Tmidim Nedarim Nedavis Chatais Hashem Zikura B'chayrais U'masrais. And the Seder Olam darshans the pasuk in Shashirim, Uri Tzafayin Uvai Seiman Afichi Gani Yizlu Besamav. Uri Tzafayin. That refers to the Oila that shechted in the north. Ubai Seiman. This refers to Shlamim that are shechted in the south. Hafichi Gani, that's Ayal Mayid. Yizlu B'samav is the Ktaras. Yavai Doidi Lagana is the Shechina. V'yoicha Prima Gadav are the Karbanos. Basi Legani Achoisi Chala. That's the 8th day. I came to my garden, my sister, O bride. Arisi Moiri in Besami is the Ktaras, the Levaina, the Menachos. Achiti, Achalti, Yari, Imdivshi are the Evare Oila, and the Emure Kachi Kadashim. Shasisi Yeni Im Chalavi are the Nesachim. Fine. My Rabbi said we're going to examine something, Ayam V'Noira, about Chodesh Nisan. First, let's begin with probably the most famous line of all the Yotzros, anywhere, certainly for Parshas HaChodesh. Raise your hand if you daven in a shul that says Yotzros for Parshas HaChodesh. So raise your hand if you avoid shuls that daven Yotzros and Parshas HaChodesh, right? So
all Yotzros, not
what?
All Yotzros, not
all shuls, you mean?
All Yotzros.
Okay. So one of the famous lines of the Yotzros, we say HaChodesh, the month of Nisan, Asher Yeshuos by Makifos, that you're surrounded by salvation. And we've said a pshat in the past, I refer you back to other makifos, could be a lashon not of surrounding, but rather on credit, that all the benefits God gave us on Nisan were unearned, and we had to earn it later through our avodah in preparation for Kabbalas HaTorah. But on a simple level, it's a month we're surrounded by salvation. Why do we have so much salvation in the month of Nisan? My Rabbi said recently in Chodesh Adar, we spoke about the Bnei Yissaschar says on the pasuk, Asagevehu ki yad Hashmi. I will elevate you because you know my name. The Bnei Yissaschar brings that there is a tradition that when you say in the Musaf on Rosh Chodesh, Baruch Atah Hashem, Kadesh Yisrael v'Rashi Chadashim, you should have in mind when you say the name of Hashem that the specific tziruf of Havaya that applies to that month. What does that mean? We know God's name is Yud Kei Vav Kei, and there are 12 ways of combining the letters of Yud Kei Vav Kei. In many of the Sidurim now, in the Art Scroll Sfard Siddur, they give you the Yud Kei Vav Kei for every month. So every month has a different combination and permutation of Yud Kei Vav Kei, whether it's Yud, Hey, and then a Hey and a Vav, or Yud, a Vav, and then a Hey and a Hey. But be it as it may, it gets a little bit confusing, which Yud Kei Vav Kei corresponds to which month. Adar's month switched. It used to be B'chalzein and Ushoiveli, and there are psukim that help you remind you what's the permutation of that particular. And we said Adar Beis actually combines all 12 months. But let's say, for example, Adar is V'la Soreka B'ni Asoinoi. Fine. And the Bnei Yissaschar says that having this kavanah greatly enhances the efficacy of one's tefillah. The thing is, it gets confusing. I mean, who could remember what's Shem Havaya? And, this is, again, it's not Ma'akev in Tefillah, it's not Lahalacha, but it's an Inyan. The thing is, it's a hard Inyan. Who could remember? But there's 1 month a year where it's sort of a piece of cake, because there's 1 month a year where the Yud Kei Vav Kei is in order. And that is Nisan, which is Yismachu HaShamayim, V'Sagel Haaretz. So there's 1 month a year where even you could be an Am Haaretz and you could still know what the Tziruf Havaya of that month is. And then in that month you're going to have a very effective tefillah. So the reason why Nisan is a month we're surrounded by Yeshua, you know why? Because our tefillah is much more powerful in Nisan. Why? Because you could be a complete Am Haaretz and still have the proper kavanah and magnify your Kayach HaTefillah. Says the Munkatcher in the Shar Yissaschar, he says, HaChodesh asher Yeshua is makifos. Why? Apidarach kedosh zakeni b'vnei Yisachar based on Mahela Gezeda. The Munkatcher was a descendant of the Bnei Yisachar. Chazal say that why are Klal Yisrael, why do they daven and they're not answered? Because they don't know how to daven with the name of Hashem. What does that mean? They don't know how to be mechavein. They don't know the name of Hashem. The Bnei Yissaschar explains they don't know the particular tzir of Hashem that is connected to that month. Now it says the Shari Yissaschar, not everybody is proficient in the tziruf of the Shemais. But Chodesh Nisan is a walk in the park. It's Yisrael Hashem Sagel Aretz. It's Yud Kei Vav Kei straight. Everybody knows it. It's very obvious. And therefore, it's a special month to have your tefillos answer, because even Amei Haaretz have this boost to their tefillah. So when you get up to the words Baruch Atah Hashem, Mekadesh Yisrael V'Azmanim, even if you're not a big Kabbalist, you could remember the tziruf of Nisan is Yismachu Hashamayim Misagal Aretz. So that made me think of the following. We say that when Amalek is in the world, God's name is what? Ki Yad Al Kes Ka. Why? Why Ka? Why missing the Vav and the Hey? Why are we missing the Vav and the Hey? So, the Yismach Moshe says that Yud Kei Vav Kei stands for Yismachu Hashamayim Misagal Aretz. Now Amalek is a big mammon. Amalek believes in God. He believes Yismachu Hashamayim. He believes God's up in heaven. But it has nothing to do with us down here. He doesn't believe in the V'sagel Haaretz. He believes there's a disconnect. That's why the simon of Amalek is the cross, where you have the line connecting heaven and earth, and then there's a horizontal line cutting them off. That's what the cross represents. The cross represents the disconnect between heaven and earth. We believe in God. He has nothing to do with our lives. What we do is none of his business, and he's not interested in it. So therefore, Amalek in the world is Kiyad al Kes Ka. Ka is Yismachu Hashamayim, but there's no V'sagel Haaretz. So therefore, says the Aruch HaShulchan, there's why do we do the mitzvah of Zechiras Amalek? We have to do it once a year. When do we do it? Adar. What do we do it Adar for? Do it on Lag BaOmer. Do it on Lag BaOmer. Do it on Arbor Day. Do it on, on Black Friday. Why do you have to remember Amalek and Adar? You know why? Because we have a tradition. B'Nisan nigalu, u'B'Nisan asidin ligoel. And before the Gula comes, we got to eradicate Amalek. In order to eradicate him, we have to remember him. So the proper time to eradicate Amalek is before Chodesh Nisan. So it comes out very beautiful. We're in Adar. And in the month of Adar, Amalek is working very hard. Yismachu Hashamayim, but we're going to throw out V'sagel Haaretz. So now that Chodesh Adar is over, and we've remembered to destroy Amalek, we've restored Yismachu Hashamayim V'sagel Haaretz, and therefore the tziruf of Chodesh Nisan is Yismachu Hashamayim V'sagel Haaretz. It's in the immediate aftermath of what? Mechias Amalek. Now we're going to learn something incredible about the month of Nisan. I'd venture to say that we never knew before. And if you say you knew it before, you didn't know it before. I'm telling you, you never knew this. Maybe you did. No, but you didn't. Okay, so we know we have a tradition. B'Nisan nigalu, v'Nisan asidin ligal. In Nisan we were redeemed, and in Nisan we're destined to be redeemed. Why? What's special about Nisan? Why will we be destined to be redeemed in the month of Nisan? Past performance has no bearing on future outcome. Who cares we left Mitzrayim? We left Mitzrayim. So what? Just because communism worked in the 19th century, still democracy is better. Marv Rabbi say there's a very difficult pasuk in Parshas Pekudei. B'yoyim ha'chodesh harishon, on the day of the first month, be'echad la'chodesh, on the first day of the month. What? B'yoyim, on the day of the first month, on the first day. What do you mean on the day of the first month? It should say be'echad la'chodesh harishon. They're like extra words here that have no meaning whatsoever. Why would it say on the day of? We're not even talking about days yet. We're up to the month. It should say either be'chodesh harishon be'echad la'chodesh or be'echad la'chodesh harishon. What's b'yoyim? That word b'yoyim has no b'yoyim ha'chodesh harishon. Be'echad la'chodesh.
Hey, also is extra now. B'yom chodesh rishon.
What's going on here? B'yoyim ha'chodesh harishon should say b'chodesh harishon be'echad la'chodesh or be'echad la'chodesh harishon. When was the Petira of Avram Avinu? When did Avram Avinu die? Well, we have different traditions. Some say he died Erev Pesach. In fact, it says that Esav was Baal al Nar HaMurasa. It says on the day that Avram Avinu died, Esav lived with the Nar Murasa. How do we know? Wow. Where does it say in the Chumash? It says in the Chumash he lived with the Nar Murasa? No, the Pshat is very pashat. Who died that day? Abraham. What day was it? Erev Pesach. What did Yitzchak give to Esav? Lechem. What kind of lechem? Matzah. So Esav ate matzah on Erev Pesach, and the Yerushalmi says, "Ha'oichel matzah be'erev Pesach kiba al arusasai bebeis chamev." So Esav lived with an Nar Murasa. How do we know? Because he ate matzah on Erev Pesach. That's a prima gadem. But some say no, Avram Avinu died Seder night. V'yamar shemes Avram Avinu belel Pesach. However, there's another tradition that Avram Avinu did not die in Nisan. Avram Avinu died in Teves. The Seder Hadoros brings down Vayitzav Avraham es Yitzchak benoi sheyishmar mitzvos Hashem vayamas Avraham tes vav shanim l'chaye Yaakov va'asu. Oh, Esav, thank you. Avraham died 15 years into the life of Yaakov and Esav. And then says the Seder Hadoros, Avraham meis b'Teves. Avraham died in the month of Teves. The Rashi Teves, Tikaver b'Seva Toiva are Teves. Tikaver b'Seva Toiva is Rashi Teves. So here we have an authentic source that Avram Avinu died in Teves. Which, by the way, is Bechlal Shver. Because we know the Machlokes, Rebbe Lezer and Rabbi Yoshua, there's Machlokes when the Avos died. We have a Gemara Rosh Hashanah here. Where's the Rosh Hashanah? Rebbe Lezer and Rabbi Shua, they argue when the Avos died. Did the Avos die in Tishrei or did the Avos die in Nisan? Right? Rebbe Lezer says they died in Tishrei and Rabbi Shua says they died in Nisan. So how could the Seder Hadoros bring down that the Avos died in Teves, that Avram died in Teves? It's against the Gemara. The Gemara brings the daya that he died in Nisan. Or by the way, look in the Yalkut Ruveni. The Yalkut Ruveni brings over here. Yalkut Ruveni is an ancient collection of midrashim or Kabbalistic sources. He also brings, sort of toward the end, he brings the Kenoida Misifrei HaMekubalim, that the side of Tikaver b'Seva Toiva is L'mafreya Teves. So Mar Rabbi say, here's the question. This is the $1 million question. When did Avram Avinu die? Let's see. Okay, we'll try a different time. Okay, so here's the question. The question is, when did Avram Avinu die? Did he die in the month of Teves? Or did he die in Nisan, like the Gemara says? This is the kasha of the Ben Yehoyada. Look at number 13. V'hinei b'Sefer Karnayim. In the Sefer Karnayim, Maimer Vav, Bebir Dan Yadin, he brings from the Sifrei HaMekubalim that again Avram Avinu died in Teves, and the smach is Tikaver b'Seva Toiva is Rashi Teves. Frek the Ben Ish Chai v'Kasha d'Layasi Loikrab Lezer v'Loikrab Yeshua. It's a nice source, but it's against Shas. It's against the Gemara. So the Ben Yehoyada quotes something Mamish Oyam V'Noira. V'Ra'isi b'Sefer Parshas Eliezer. I saw in the Sefer Parshas Eliezer, Shehu Gam Kein Bir al Sefer Karnayim Haniskar, the Yishev Zeh al Pi Mashgov Sefer Karnayim Atzmai Mamra Kodem. The Sefer Parshas Eliezer, which is a Bir on the Sefer Karnayim, answers this based on what the Sefer Karnayim himself writes earlier. You ready for this? You fastening your seatbelts? Shebechodesh Nisan Klulim Kol Hachadoshim. Chodesh Nisan encompasses all the months of the year. That means there are days in Nisan that are Nisan days, there are days in Nisan that are Iyar days, there are days in Nisan that are Sivan days, there are days in Nisan that are Tammuz days, there are days in Nisan that are Av days, there are Elul days, Tishrei, Cheshvan, Kislev, Teves. There are Teves days in Nisan. Avad Avram died in Nisan. But what day of Nisan? The day that corresponds to Chodesh Teves. V'hu nifter b'Nisan b'yom hashach l'chodesh teves. By the way, says the Ben Ish Chai, according to that, Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Shua don't argue when the Avos were born and died. Rabbi Lezer agrees that they were born and died in Nisan. Rabbi Lezer is just saying they were born and died in Tishrei of Nisan. By the way, what day is Tishrei of Nisan? What day is Tishrei of Nisan? The 7th day. Or actually, he doesn't say. We don't know.
Multiple days, right?
We don't know. He doesn't say. He's uncommittal. It could be any time. Like right now could be, Lag B'Omer on Nisan. Actually, right now is Adar, so it's not on the above. So here he brings a tremendous yisaid, an amazing yisaid, that there are Nisan encompasses all the months of the year, and therefore there are days in Nisan that correspond to Teves. So the Gemara is correct, Avram Avinu died in Nisan, and the Kabbalah is correct that he died in Teves. He died in the day of Nisan that corresponds to Teves. Comes the Sefer Agra de Kala. This will explain the very mysterious pasuk, B'yoyim ha'chodesh harishon be'echad la'chodesh. It should have said, B'chodesh harishon be'echad la'chodesh, or be'echad la'chodesh harishon. What does it mean? On the day of the first month, on the first day of the month. Listen to what he says. He says, V'hanira, right now we don't know what day of Nisan corresponds to what month, and what, the third day corresponds to, I don't know. V'hanira pimasha kibalnu. I have a tradition. The oisan hayud beis yamim harishonim the Nisan yemei hakravas nasiyim. Those 12 first days of Nisan, the days the Nasiyim brought karbanos, hema koyach klali leyud beis chodshei hashana, correspond to the 12 months of the year. Kol yoim roimei zechodesh shalem. Every day is a different month. Now that comes out. The first day of Nisan is what? Nisan. And the second day is Iyar. And the third day is Tammuz. And the fourth day is Av. And the fifth day is Elul. No. The first one is Nisan. Second is Iyar. Third is Sivan. Fourth is Tammuz. Fifth is Av. Sixth is Elul. Seventh is Tishrei. Kain shamanu michvoid Adonin Morin Rabbeinu Harav HaKadosh Ramanachem Mendel V'zachi haros yichoyin lizboin b'chol yom. If you have Ruach HaKodesh, so for all you Baalei Ruach HaKodesh out there, you could look into each day of Nisan and know what, based on what happens that day, what the month corresponding to that will look like. So you look on the third day, what's the stock market doing? The stocks are going to go up. Okay, so now I know the month of Sivan is a good day to invest. On the fifth day, they go down. Don't invest in Av. Okay, inside I get at least 35% commission on that. Yeah, b'chodesh asher hu neged hayom. Then you didn't do it right. Asher hu neged hayom ahu. Then it's corresponding to that day. Uchvoid Adonin Morin Rabbeinu Harav HaKadosh haya koisev b'ruach kodshay b'chol yom asher yeh b'chol chodesh. His Rebbe would write on each day what would happen in the corresponding month. By the way, the Rav Nachman Mendel Rimanov, he would predict everything that would happen during the year based on the way the first 12 days of Nisan would go. And in the year that he died, in the month of Av, he only wrote what would happen in Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz. Now we understand Yom Rishon. What does Yom Rishon correspond to? Nisan, Chodesh Rishon. This is what it means. B'yom ha'chodesh harishon, on the day of the first month. What does it mean on the day of the first month? On the day that's corresponding to the first month, which is Echad LaChodesh. That's how you read the pasuk. B'yom, on the day ha'chodesh harishon that corresponds to the first month. What day corresponds to the first month? Be'echad LaChodesh. So it's more than the Ben Ish Chai. Ben Ish Chai just says there are days in Nisan that correspond to every day of the month, every month of the year. But now we're learning which days. The first 12 days of the month correspond to the 12 months of the year.
And what happens after the 13th to the 29th or the 30th?
I tell you what you need to know. Okay? So, says the Shar Yisascha, the Munkatcher, so it comes out then that the month of Nisan corresponds to which Shevet? Yehuda. Umechuvan hayoim hazeh Rosh Chodesh Nisan, which is who's the Nasi of Yehuda? Nachshon ben Aminadav Lamata Yehuda. Why? Since Benisan Nigalu, Uvenisan Asidin Ligoel. And we know, like it's quoted in the Agra de Kala, by the way, this is from the Chayzim Lublin. But so when he quotes HaKadosh, Rabbi Yaakov Yitzchak, the Chayzim Lublin, would write what would occur in each month, that the 12 days of the Nesiyim is connected that month. Rosh Chodesh Nisan is connected Chodesh Nisan. The second day is Iyar. And Kesidron. And this is what it means, B'yoim HaChodesh HaRishon, on the day that corresponds to the first month, which is the first day. So since Nisan is Mesugal for the Geula, therefore it's the Nasi of Shevet Yehuda from which Malchus Beis David comes to. So I was thinking about this early this morning, and I realized something amazing. So it comes out, what day of the year did Avram Avinu pass away?
Erev Rosh Chodesh, Erev Pesach,
Equivalent to Shabbat Haggadah.
the 14th or the 15th, right?
The 10th day. The 10th day of Nisan. Right? Because we know Avram Avinu died in Nisan, and the Kabbalah says he died in Teves. So how do you reconcile it? He died in the month of Nisan that corresponds to Teves. What day is that? The 10th day of Nisan. So it comes out Oyam V'Noira. What do we call the 10th day of Nisan? Shabbos HaGadol. And I have a sefer at home of 100 reasons why it's called Shabbos HaGadol. Here's a new one. What is Avram Avinu called in Tanakh? Ha'adam HaGadol Ba'anokim. He's called Gadol. Where else do we call him Gadol? Hakel HaGadol Avraham HaGibar Yitzchak V'Hanoira Yaakov. Gadol. So it's Shabbos of who? Shabbos HaGadol, the Shabbos of Avram Avinu. He's the one individual who's called Gadol in the Chumash. Gadol is Chesed. That's why it's called Shabbos HaGadol. It's the yard site of Avraham Avinu, according to what we just learned. It's a new pshat. Now we're going to have a new sefer, 101 reasons for Shabbos HaGadol. Okay, but another very interesting thing. What's the mazel of Chodesh Teves? Gedi. The Sefer Yetzirah said, Gedi, right? The goat. That's well known. The Gedi is the mazel of Chodesh Teves. In fact, the lashon of the Sefer Yetzirah is Kashar Gedi. God tied the Gedi. What did we do on the 10th day of Teves? On 10th day of Nisan. We tied the Gedi. Why? Mahu Afatu. We're emulating HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When God created the world, in the month of Teves, He was Kashar the Gedi. Therefore, on the 10th day of Teves, of Nisan, which corresponds to Teves, by the way, the tziruf of Chodesh Teves is Gadlu, Lashem, Iti, Uneroimama. Vav, Hey, Yud, Hey. Gadlu. Teves is Gadlu. What day of Nisan corresponds to Teves? 10th day of Teves. Shabbos HaGadol, the day that corresponds to Gadlu Lashem Iti Uneroima Shmayachtav. That's 102nd reason for Shabbos HaGadol. That's from the Munkatcher. So he says over here, let's just read a little bit, in number 16, Oid Yeshalem Rabbazeh Al Pi Mashikasav Kadosh Sekeni Ba'agra Dekala, on the pasuk B'yoim HaChodesh HaRishon Be'echad HaChodesh, that it should have said B'kitzer Be'echad HaChodesh HaRishon. Based on this Kabbalah, that the 12 days of Nisan, that the Nesiyim brought their karbanos, are the koyach klali of the 12 months of the year, like it's brought in Rabbeinu Kadosh of Lublin and the Chayza, that the Chayza of Lublin was able to see on each day of the month what would happen to that month. And I think I said before it was Rav Menachem Mendel Miriminov, so he was the first one quoted by the Agra de Kala, but in terms of that he passed away in the month of Av, that was the Chayza. So he brings the Chumash Nimsa Shayom Echad Hu Keneged HaChodesh HaRishon. Ulefizeh, the miracle that happened on the 10th day of the month, which is Shabbos HaGadol. How do we know it was Shabbos HaGadol? Because we know they left Mitzrayim on what? Thursday. On a Thursday. So that means the 10th was a Shabbos. What did they do? They tied the Gedi to the foot of the bed, and the Mitzrayim worshipped the Seh, and their teeth were chaos, and Klal Yisrael couldn't do anything, and the Bechoros made a war, and they killed many Egyptians. Now the 10th of Nisan is which month? Is Teves. And in Sefer Yetzirah it says, Kashar Gedi Ba'olam. The tziruf of Teves is Gadol Hashem Iti Uneroim Mashmayach Dov. And therefore, that's the pshat. He says a few lines down, he says Hagadi, which is the mazel of Teves, is, let's see where he says it.
Against the Kemet.
That's the pshat of why we were kashar the Gedi, because we also emulated HaKadosh Baruch Hu by being kashar the Gedi. So this is a tremendous yesod that the month of Nisan corresponds to all the months of the year. Now the truth is, the Shlach HaKadosh says another incredible drush in the pasuk. It says, "HaChodesh hazeh lachem," this month is for you. Rashei Chadashim, the heads of the month. Rishon hu lachem l'chadshei hashana. What does it mean? HaChodesh hazeh lachem, Rashei Chadashim. This month is for you. It should say, HaChodesh hazeh lachem, Rishon hu lachem l'chadshei hashana. What's Rashei Chadashim? So the Shla says, every day of Nisan has Kedushas Rosh Chodesh. HaChodesh hazeh lachem, Rashei Chadashim. This month is for you. Every day has Kedushas Rosh Chodesh. But based on what we're learning, it makes sense. Each month is, so to speak, like a Rosh Chodesh for a different month of the year. So we should be zoicha that the new year should bring Klal Yisrael Yeshuas, Nachamash. We should take a be zoicha the Nisan Nigalu, the Nisan Asiden Ligoel, Agon Shabbos, Agon Chodesh.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.